was that no peace could succeed without them. But once allowed back, they've refused to comply with the Paris Agreement. This year, the UN will hold elections, which will almost certainly produce a government that includes allies of the Khmer Rouge. The UN says the elections will be held in a neutral political environment. Meanwhile, Pol Pot waits in the countryside.
How do you produce a neutral political environment when you have warring factions and then you have among them a genocidal group, the Khmer Rouge? How do you get neutrality out of that?
Okay. Of course, they're your words, and my position, and this is one of great neutrality. In fact, the United Nations has to maintain a neutral position in this. We're here to implement an agreement that's been reached between the four factions and the surrounding countries and a number of other interested nations. So the mandate is based on that agreement, and there's a series of steps in that agreement. The steps are designed to create the neutral political environment. The principal step was to create the neutral security environment by cantonning and disarming all the factions and then demobilising 70% of them. Of course, the Secretary-General and the Security Council called for the demobilisation of 100%, as indeed did the Party of Democratic Kampuchea.
That's the Khmer Rouge.
Yes, that's what they're commonly known as. They don't like to be called that, incidentally.
Do you find it difficult to use the jargon?
Yeah. Well, I don't, call this jargon. That's the name that they've got, and that's how I refer to them when I'm meeting with them or when I'm writing to them, which I do fairly often. Just as I, refer to all the other parties by the full title. So you're right. I mean, it's quite difficult for me when journalists come in here and call them by a name that they don't like. And in my neutral position as force commander of the military component and having to negotiate with them, I must maintain the position.
No, I understand. I was thinking your earlier comment, you said they're my words, but actually in 1986 the United Nations Special Rapporteur, as you probably know, described what they did as genocide, and I quote, in the most restrictive meaning of that term. So it's the body that you represent has described them as genocidists.
Okay, they may well have, but I'm not going to.
This is the former extermination centre at Tuol Sleng. In 1979, following the overthrow of Pol Pot, I was one of the first journalists to enter